You know, you hear about comeback stories all the time, but this one is legendary. It's a true David versus Goliath tale from the world of high tech. We're talking about a seemingly invincible giant and an underdog that was, frankly, on the verge of disappearing forever. This is the story of a single, massive bet that didn't just save a company, it completely redrew the map for the entire chip industry. So today, we're going to break down how this impossible turnaround actually happened. Our guide for this is a fantastic, really in-depth analysis from n.techfocus.rs. We're going to explore how AMD went from being basically a ghost in the machine to a powerhouse leader. All right, let's rewind the clock. Picture this. The year is 2015. In the world of computer processors, there was really only one name that mattered: Intel. Everybody else, they were just living in Intel's world. And wow, just look at this. This chart puts the mismatch into perspective. We're not talking about a company being a little bit bigger. In 2015, Intel was worth a staggering $162 billion, and AMD, a mere $2 billion. That's not a competition, that's a rounding error. Intel was worth 70 times more than AMD. Let that sink in. This right here tells the whole story. Intel was the absolute king, commanding over 90% of the market. Meanwhile, AMD was on life support. They were drowning in over $2 billion of debt, and their last big attempt at a new chip, the bulldozer architecture, was a notorious failure. To say things looked grim, well, that's putting it mildly. But this is where the story gets good. Backed into a corner and facing total extinction, AMD knew they couldn't just try to make a slightly better product. They had to change the entire game. They made an all-or-nothing bet on a completely new strategy. And leading this charge was the new CEO, Dr. Lisa Su. She made a call that was honestly just incredibly brave. Scrap everything. Start over from scratch. The company poured its entire future into a clean sheet design they called Zen, with a laser-like focus on one thing and one thing only: high-performance computing. And this quote right here, it just says it all. No more band-aids, no more trying to polish a failed idea. The new AMD was going to be all about pure, hardcore engineering. It was a promise to just build the absolute best product possible, no matter how long it took. Now, for any great underdog story to work, the giant has to have a weak spot, right? An Achilles heel? And as it turned out, Intel's greatest strength was about to become its biggest prison. Let's take a look inside the fortress. You see, for decades, Intel's superpower was this thing called the IDM, or Integrated Device Manufacturer model. They designed the chips, they built the chips in their own factories, and they optimized the whole process in a tight loop. It made them unstoppable. But it was also a golden cage. If just one part of that loop broke, the entire machine would grind to a halt. And wouldn't you know it, in 2015, that's exactly what went down. Intel's famous tick-tock cycle, that reliable 2-year drumbeat of innovation that everyone counted on, it just stopped. Their next big thing, the 10-nanometer manufacturing process, slammed into a brick wall and got stuck. For the first time in forever, the king looked vulnerable. And with the king stumbling, this was the opening. This was the moment AMD was waiting for. They didn't just have a new chip in the works, they had a totally new way of doing business, born out of pure necessity. See, AMD didn't own its own factories. And in 2018, their main manufacturing partner basically gave up on building the most advanced 7-nanometer chips. It was just too hard and too expensive. Now, this could have been game over for AMD, but instead, it turned into the single most important decision they ever made. They pivoted and went all in with a different company, TSMC, who had cracked the code on 7-nanometer. So what you have now is this incredible contrast. Intel is stuck inside its golden cage, trying to fix its own manufacturing problems. But AMD is now what they call fabless. They could focus 100% on designing amazing chips, while their new partner, TSMC, focused 100% on being the best chip manufacturer on the planet. This wasn't just a competition anymore. It was an alliance versus an empire. I love this line from the source article because it just nails it. By teaming up with TSMC, AMD essentially bought access to better technology, better physics, than the mighty Intel could even produce in-house. They couldn't build it themselves, so they cleverly bought it from the best. But wait, it gets even better. This wasn't just about who made the chips, but how they were designed. AMD's new Zen architecture used this revolutionary chiplet idea.
Think of it like Lego. Instead of trying to build one huge, complicated, and expensive chip, they built smaller, simpler chiplets that worked perfectly, and then just connected them together. This was economic magic. It made their chips cheaper to make, more flexible to design, and let them build way more powerful processors than anyone thought possible.
Okay, so all the pieces are on the board. AMD has the leadership, the brilliant architecture, a powerful ally, and this game-changing chiplet design. Now it was time to see if the stone from David's sling would actually hit its mark. And bam! The first shot was fired right at the heart of the consumer market with their Ryzen processors. All of a sudden, for the same money you'd spend on a top Intel chip, you could get an AMD chip with way more cores, giving you a 40% performance boost in productivity. For the first time in years, Intel Inside was no longer the automatic choice. But the real haymaker, the one that truly shook Intel to its core, was in the data center. This was Intel's cash cow. AMD's new EPYC server chips were just a knockout. As you can see here, a single AMD server could do the work of 2 Intel servers. That meant less space, less power, and a much, much lower cost. The math was just impossible to ignore. And this is the money shot. The moment the entire story was building towards. In 2022, the thing that nobody thought could ever happen, happened. That orange line, the company that was on life support in 2015, crossed over and actually surpassed the market value of the blue line, the Titan Intel. David had officially beaten Goliath. Just incredible. So how on earth did they pull this off? What can we all learn from what is, without a doubt, one of the greatest corporate turnarounds in modern history? Well, it wasn't any single thing, but a perfect storm of smart strategy and flawless execution. It really boils down to 4 key pillars. First, you had visionary leadership with Lisa Su. Second, a revolutionary new architecture in Zen and the chiplet design. Third, that crucial strategic alliance with TSMC. And fourth, a laser-focused target, hitting Intel where it hurt most, the data center. And what's so cool is that these lessons apply to, well, pretty much any industry. First, great execution will always beat a lazy legacy. Just because you're on top doesn't mean you'll stay there. Second, turn your weakness into a strength. Not having factories forced AMD to find a partner, which became their secret weapon. And finally, you gotta disrupt the economics. AMD didn't just win on performance, they completely changed the financial equation of building powerful chips. So look, this fight is far from over. But one thing is for sure, the game has completely changed. AMD's comeback shattered a monopoly that had lasted for decades, and that brought real, fierce competition back to the market, which forces everyone to build better, faster stuff. And you know who wins when that happens? We do. We've really just scratched the surface of this amazing story. For the full deep dive analysis of this incredible corporate comeback, I really recommend you read the original article that inspired